Hello class, today we're going to go through lecture 10 under the Microsoft section. I believe this is a very important lecture which you should all know and understand, especially when using Microsoft Word. So we are discussing formatting a research paper. So this is the same thing as formatting any assignments that you might have or your final research paper once you get to third year. So in this lecture we are going to discuss creating citations. So I'll show you two methods of creating citations. The first method we are going to do is creating citations within Word itself, and then also create citations using a separate free software called Zotero. Then we are also going to look at adding captions. So that's adding captions to either figures, equations, and tables that will be in your document to give it more description. Then we are also going to discuss creating and modifying headers or footers. So that's the third section here. Then we are going to look at creating a works cited page, which will either be your bibliography or reference page, and you should be able to identify and know the differences between a bibliography and a reference page from I believe ICT132. Then we are going to discuss inserting footnotes and endnotes. And then, although you've already done it, we are also going to discuss creating a table of contents, adding a title page, working with hyperlinks, and finally, creating bookmarks. So I will now switch from the PowerPoint presentation layout to actually doing the exercise and examples within this lecture in Word itself, so that you'll be able to see as I go along. So in order to format your research paper, of course you are looking at referencing material that you have used when coming up with your work. So the standard that we use at Mlungushi for citing our work is Harvard. In the lecture slides, you would have noticed that the prescribed method is the Modern Language Association, which is MLA, but the university uses Harvard. There are various other styles that are out there, so depending on what your department prescribes, what the university prescribes, or which field of knowledge you're working in, that would determine which referencing style that you're going to use. So Word has made it easy for you to format a research paper and also add and manage your sources by selecting a style, inserting a bibliography, inserting captions. You can create a table of contents automatically and also add footnotes and endnotes. So within this lecture, we are going to learn how to add citations to our paper in order to avoid plagiarism. So we are going to insert citations using Harvard, like I said. So the first step would be to open up a document which is within your student data files, and the document name is firstladies.docx. So to do that, what you simply need to do is browse on your PC where you have stored all your student data files. For me, they are in this folder called student data files, and I'll use Word, and then I'll go to lecture number 7, and then the one we've been asked to open is First Ladies. So once you open up this document, currently it has got no formatting style and it looks pretty plain. So we are now going to start formatting this like you would a research paper. So the first thing that it says is place an insertion point at the beginning of the document and create a couple of blank lines. And we are now going to enter the student name and some other information that we're going to key in. So the insertion point is already at the beginning. And then I am going to enter a few blank lines and then enter some information as it is given in the lecture slides. So in this case, I'll type my name, and then Professor Frank Smith, and then History 101 is the name of the course, and then the date. So today is April 6, 2020. So the next instruction is select the whole document and then change the font to 12 and font size to 12 and font Arial. So select the entire document by clicking Ctrl A, change the font size to 12 and then changing the font to Arial. And then change the margins to 1 inch top, left, bottom, right, and then change the spacing to double. So I'm now going to change the margins to 1 inch. So this is the one that we have been asked to change it to. And then it creates a 1 inch margin from here to here, top to bottom. And then the next part would be change the spacing to double. Change the spacing to double. So there you go. Then the next instruction is to apply a first line indent only to paragraphs and avoid any titles or headings. In order to insert a first indent, you can use the insert tab like that, or within your paragraph group under your home tab, you can click that, and then where it says indentation, you can click that one. You can click first line and then say okay, and then it will create the same thing. So I'll just use the tab and create indents everywhere. That doesn't look like a heading. So this is a heading. I'll apply the indent there. Apply all the indents on the rest of the page. And you are done with that instruction. So the next instruction says, under the heading Women in Politics, position the insertion point in the second paragraph, beginning with the nation has always. So I will first go to Women in Politics, which is this section, and then look for the second paragraph or the second sentence, and the one that starts with the nation has always, which is there. And then so for this one, we've been asked to place the indentation exactly 1 inch from the margin. So the margin is here, but right now this is only ½ an inch. So we've been asked to apply 1 inch and then remove the first indent. So I can remove that and then apply 1 inch, which is there, to that section. And the reason for this is because we are citing quite a lot of work. So this information should be enclosed in double quotes. So I'll put that there and then end the final double quotes that side. And this is when you are citing a big chunk of information or anything that's more than 3 lines. So once that is done, we are going to position the insertion point within the title, which is the evolving role of the First Lady, and then center it. So we're just going to place this cursor literally anywhere and then center it, and that should center the title. Then select the headings below and apply heading 1. So the following headings should have a style of heading 1, and you now know how to create your own headings. So you simply select the title and then apply the heading. So the next one is Women in Politics, and then the third is History of First Women, which is this. Apply the heading. The roles of First Ladies, we also apply the heading for that. Power of First Ladies, change that to heading number 1, and finally the conclusion, and also change that to heading number 1. So we save the document now, but we save it as another name. So to save the document using another name, we use the save as option. I'll choose the location where I'm going to save, and then it has asked us to save the document as research on First Ladies. And there we go. We've saved our document. So far, we've just done a bit of formatting. So I will now zoom out so that you can see what our document looks like. So far, we've added the following information, centered the title, and then made titles with heading 1. So now that we formatted your research paper, the next part would be to now start adding citations to your documents. So cited sources may include documents such as research papers, articles, reports, any lecture slides that you may reference, newspaper articles, audio files, websites, blog sites, etc., etc. But the only key is to add the reference where it is relevant and cited. So the good thing with Word is that you can insert and create a source at the same time, and you can also manage and modify or delete citations where necessary. So that's the next section we are now going to discuss. So a citation is a note mentioning the source of information. So there are many rules that can be applied to a specific citation. In this lesson, you're just going to learn how to use the basic in-text citation, which places parentheses after a quote that includes the author name and the page number, or the author name and the year. So remember, we are using the Harvard referencing style. So for Harvard, when you have in-text citations, you always have the author names first and then the year in which that reference was created or cited. A source, as I've mentioned, includes all information about where specific information comes from so that the reader can find the original work. So for example, you have a book that you've referenced. So in order to find out all the information that is relevant, you need to make sure that you have added everything. So when you add a new citation to a document, you also create a new source that will appear in the bibliography. A bibliography is simply a list of sources and is placed at the end of the document. And this is also referred to as works cited page. Remember at the beginning of the lecture, I mentioned that you should also understand what the difference between a bibliography and a reference page is. So each time you create a new source in any document, the information is saved on your computer in what we refer to as a master list, and we are going to see that in Word. Word also creates a current list which contains all the sources within your current document, and this list can be modified at any time. When you have not gathered all the data for a source, you can insert a placeholder that can be filled in at a later time. So when I'll skip the placeholder section, which I'll expect each one of you to go through and do as I've done in the exercises, but for now I will only expect full references from each student and each work that needs to be added. So you can choose from many different referencing styles when formatting your document and your citations, but for the university, we only use Harvard and not any other referencing style. So in order to start creating your citations, the first thing that you should do is go to the References tab, and you have your Citations and Bibliography group. So first things first is editing and changing the style that you're going to use within the document. So the style that we are using is the Harvard, which is this one. So once you've changed that, it means the citations that you're going to add will now only be Harvard style. And the good thing with this list is once you have created your citations, you can toggle and change from one style to another, but we are only focusing on the Harvard referencing style. So on the reference tab, just like I've done under the citations and bibliography group, change the style to Harvard. So once you've done that, under the heading Women in Politics, position the insertion point at the end of the first paragraph after Meringolo. So in case we wanted to add a citation where we got this quotation from, which is this entire section here, we would then add a citation here to say Meringolo explained, and then we would add our citation there. So to add a citation, we are now going to use this button which says insert citation, and we are now going to click add a new source. So when we click add a new source, the following dialog box opens up. So this will allow us to create and manage our citations. As I was saying, once you click insert a new citation, the create source citation dialog box opens up. We have the following field, which is called type of source. Now this type of source includes predefined sources that you can reference, such as book, a certain section in a book, a journal article, articles in periodical conference proceedings, a report, a website, a document for a website, if you are referencing electronic source, sound recording, performance, and so on and so forth. Now, we are now going to start keying in our source. So, the first one we are going to insert is a book. So you'd add the author names here. You'd add the title of the book in this field, the year in which the book was published, the city, the publisher, and the edition. We also have this checkbox which allows us to toggle and see all the mandatory fields as well as any other bibliography fields that we might have that we can use as well. So for instance, we can see anything that's marked with a star. For this specific book source, type of source, these are mandatory fields, meaning we need this information in order to make a complete reference. Then we have other fields that aren't mandatory, but if available to us, we can add as well. We have the edition, which we've seen, the day you accessed it, the month, the year, and so on. So the good thing is, the moment you switch from a book, let's say, to conference proceedings, the fields that are required will also change. So you have, in this case, one thing that I've noticed that has changed is the URL for where you can download the conference proceeding, and a DIO number, which is simply a document identifier that is unique to this conference proceeding. If I change and let's say sound recording, of course the information changes. Now we have composer, the conductor, the performer, we have the artist title, the album, producer, production company, and so on and so forth. So when you change the type, the necessary fields will also change as you go. So for now we are entering a book, and we are only going to go with the mandatory fields. So we are now going to add the following author information, and this information that I'm typing can be found on the lecture slides. So just simply go back and go through and do the exercises I'm doing in the lecture slides. First ladies, political role, and public image is the title of the book. It was published in 1990. The city is Washington. publisher is Smithsonian Institute, and we don't have an edition, which is fine. So you notice that when I click the edit button for the author, it now separated the list of authors that I had written. So we have Edith on one line and Dennis D on another line. And the reason why it can separate the two author names is because of the semicolon. If you can't remember that you need to put a semicolon to separate usernames, you can simply click the edit button there and then add last name and the first name or middle name manually. So let's say I also contributed to this book. I would simply write my last name there and my first name there, and then click add, and then my name will also be added to the list of authors. So when I say okay, it should now have my name, and the moment I added my name, a semicolon was added. So I can edit the list and also delete my name because I didn't contribute to the writing of this book. So once you are done entering your details, you can now click save or okay in this case. The moment you do that, a citation is then added for you automatically using the reference style that you've chosen, which is Harvard, in the position that you've put your cursor. So let's say we were told to change the style from Harvard to, say, IEEE. For IEEE, the format is usually numbers, and you can see that without any work, the correct citation format was changed to numbers. If I change the style back to MLA, we have the names and the corresponding citation style applied as well. So since we're using Harvard, I will change it back to Harvard, and it changes because for Harvard we need names and the year showing. So now we are adding our second citation. So under the heading that says History of First Ladies, yes, we now look for put the insertion point at the end of the second sentence following the word speech. So at this point, that's where we are placing our next citation. Then we're going to click the insert citation button and then add a new source. So the type of source that we are adding again is a book. And then we are going to key in the following information for the book. So the author name in this case is 1, but I'll use the edit button just so that you see how to use the edit button. So we have last name is not Anthony. So we have Anthony Curl is the middle name, and then last name is this. When we click add, the author name is added, okay, and then we have the author added. So the title in this case is America's First Families, an inside view of 200 years of private life in the White House. The year for this book was 2000. The city it was published in was New York. We have a publisher name as well, Simon and Partner. And then once we are happy with this, we click OK. And there you go. Your next citation is added. So when you insert a citation, Word will always insert it into your document inside a placeholder. So when you hover your mouse over the citation, it usually appears shaded, as you can see, like this. And you can easily modify the text within the placeholder or the source or citation data that goes along with it. At the end of the second paragraph, click on the first citation that you inserted. So we use the end of the second paragraph, which is here. We are now going to see how we can modify or edit the citation. So we click the drop down arrow that is displayed on the right, which is this. When you click that button, you have the following options that show up: edit citation, edit source, convert citation to static text, or update citations and bibliography. So we want to edit the source. So if we click edit source, we have a dialog box that pops up that allows us to edit any information that we've entered. So if I change the year from 1990 to 1994, this should also be reflected. And the moment you make any edits to your citation, it will always ask if you want to change the citation and source in the master list as well as your current list in the document. So in this case, we want to apply both changes. We would say yes, and then the year would change to 1994. So the citation is still selected. Click the drop down pointing arrow on the placeholder again, and this time we'll select edit citation. So the edit citation dialog box will open to the right, and then it will allow us to add page numbers in case we want to specify which pages we copied this citation from, which is the nation has always been. So let's say we got this from page 8. Is where we copied the citation from. We can suppress the author, and then the moment we click OK, the author names do not show up because we've suppressed the author, but we still have the year and the page number showing up. So I can click author and then say suppress the year. So the author name comes up and the year disappears, but the page number shows up. So depending on how you want to represent your citations, you have those options available to you. So now we move on back to adding more citations. So we first go to the heading that says History of First Ladies. And remember, we discussed navigation. So I can open up the navigation pane so that I can easily use the headings right here to navigate within my document. So History of First Ladies, I'll simply click that and it will bring me to the relevant section. And it says place the insertion point at the end of the paragraph after shakers. So right after shakers, right there. So in this case, we are now going to insert a placeholder, but I'll leave this section for you, and you can find this within the lecture slides to figure out how to go about that. So we move on to the next sections, and creating a placeholder is the same thing as inserting a citation and editing a citation, so it shouldn't be too difficult. So we move on to managing sources. So the source manager displays a list of all the citations that you have entered or all the sources that you've created. It will display two lists which contains all the sources for your documents as well as the entire master list of all references and sources that you have ever created on your PC using that specific Word application. So in order to see the manager, source manager, you first need to click the manage sources under the reference tab within the citations and bibliography group, which is the button that you see right here at the top. So once I click that, you can see my source manager. So on your left, you have what you refer to as your master list and on my right, I have what I refer to as my current list. You can see that on my master list, I have 4 sources that I have used or created within Word. And on my right, I have 2 sources, which are the ones we've just added just now. So this will always show you an entire list of all your references and sources, the entirety that you have your Microsoft Word application installed on your laptop. And this list is different from each and every individual depending on the work that they have done and the sources that they are copying. So this citation, this source manager will allow us to edit our list and copy references from left and right. So let's say I wanted to copy this reference to my current list, which is the document I'm working on. I would simply click on it and then say copy, and then would have it available in my current list. I can also click on it and delete it from my current list only, but not my master list. You can see that I have 2 references that are the same. So I can delete one from my master list, so because there's no reason to have the same information for both. And you can see a preview of what the reference looks like here at the bottom, and it also shows you which referencing style that you're working with. So if I click the bottom one, they are pretty much showing the same information, except it's formatted differently. So I would delete the one that I don't need. So now that we have looked at adding citations in Word, managing your sources and references, we shall now look at adding captions to either tables and figures and other elements within your document, such as equations if you might have them. So basically, when creating and adding in-text citations, this is the tab that we would use, the reference tab and the citations and bibliography group, by clicking the insert citation and placing the cursor where you want your citation to go. So if I wanted to add the new citation that I have just added to my list, so let me add it to my list, copy and then close. When you copy a source from the master list, your current list, you should be able to see it here, and I can simply click on it to add my reference right there. So we are now going to start working on adding captions. So Word can automatically add captions for you in your document, and this helps you especially with numbering. So a caption is basically a line of text that describes an object and can appear above or below the object it describes. You guys have seen this when you're reading textbooks. As you continue working on your paper, you decide to add a table and insert a picture. Adding a caption below or above a table will be informative to anyone that reads your report. So first, let's start with adding captions to a table. So first, we enable the navigation pan, and then under the heading Power of First Ladies, position the insertion point at the end of the last paragraph, ending with her husband's career. So we are now going to Power of First Ladies, and then the last paragraph, husband's career. We're going to place the insertion point there, add one blank line, and then close the navigation pan if you want. But then we are going to insert a 2x3 table. You know how to insert tables, so we need a 2x3. Oops, is that a 2x3? Undo. Two by 3. There we go. We're going to set that, and then in the first column and first row, we are going to type in the words First Ladies. In the second column, we're going to put year in White House. And then the second column, second row, which is this one. We're going to type in 1981 January 22, 1989 January 20. Then we're also going to replicate that for the second one, but change the years. So this is 93, and then 2001. So now we are now going to insert some images for the first ladies. So from the lesson folder, we are going to insert a figure for Nancy Reagan and then one for Hillary Clinton, who were the first ladies during this period. We just format that to make it look better. So to insert a picture, you click on the Insert tab and then navigate to the location of your images. So the first lady, Nancy, gets inserted, and then the next first lady gets inserted. Now you've seen that one picture was inserted properly, whereas the second one is quite big. So we need to edit the sizes of our figures. So for the height and width, we want about 1 inch for the height and about less than an inch for the width for both images. So in order to edit the size, you'd click on the picture itself. Under the Format Picture Tools, I would set the height to 1 inch, 1.2, and also set the width to about 0.99 or 96, which is fine. And I'll do the same for Hillary, or I could just type in 1.2. And also 1.96 is fine. So apply auto fit to contents command for the whole table and position the insertion point below the table at a blank line. So we're going to now select the whole table, and then we want to ensure that all the contents can fit. So it's auto fit contents, which is this, and the table is formatted as necessary. So now we are at the end of this table, which is there, and in the References tab in the Citations group, click Insert Caption button to open up the caption dialog box below. Or, so I'll do that both ways. So under References, we're looking at the Captions group now, Insert Caption, and it will allow the caption dialog box to open. Or another way is to simply select the table itself, right click it, and then Insert Caption. It achieves the exact same thing. So within the dialog box that opens, we have a few options that we can change. We have the label and the position that we want. We can also exclude the label from the caption. When we say exclude the label from the caption, the word table disappears, but when we include it, table reappears. We have an equation which we can apply captions to, figures, and we can also create our very own caption labels as well. So since we're working with a table, we are going to select table, and then right after the one, we're going to click a space bar and then describe what the table is talking about. So we are talking about first ladies in America if you want, or just simply First Ladies is fine. And this time we are saying insert the position of the caption below the item, which is below this table. And once you're done, you can click OK. And while you work, always a good thing to save. So click the save button or use the shortcut, which is Control S on your keyboard. So we are now going to start adding captions to our figures, and you do this the same way that you would for any other elements or objects. So let's say we wanted to add a caption for this figure and that figure right there. So we would first select the Nancy Reagan picture and then click insert caption button, or right click and say insert caption. It achieves the same thing. Then add a check mark on exclude label from caption, but ensure that you have first changed it to figure, and then we say exclude that. Then we can click the new label button and then key in Nancy Reagan. So we have this new label, which allows us to create our own labels if we do not want to use the predefined ones. So we can type her name, Reagan, and say OK. It will now change the caption style to Nancy Reagan because you have now just added it there. And then see, do we want to exclude it? So let's say we had a number of Nancy Reagan pictures. You'd simply say this is Nancy Reagan 1, 2, and it will keep incrementing automatically depending on the number of Nancy Reagan pictures that you have. So we're going to say OK. And then we're also going to do the same for the second one. Set caption. And then new label, Hillary Clinton for the next one. And then it automatically changes to 1 below the item, and then say OK. And we have our, Clinton. We need to edit that. There we go. So there we go, and we've also added captions to figures, and you'd apply the same process even if it was an image not within a table like this one. So let's say we included a completely different picture here. I will use the course outline table. Let's see if we have any other pictures in any of these other files. So let's say we had this image that we are inserting. You would simply right click and then say insert caption. This is a figure, and then would say example figure caption, but you'd obviously name this appropriately, and then say OK, and then the caption is applied accordingly. So I'll undo this and we can continue working on our document. So now we're going to discuss adding captions to equations, and this would be the same process as we've done for adding captions to tables and figures. So in order to insert captions to an equation, clearly this assignment has got nothing to do with equations because it's talking about the First Ladies and something political. So we are going to use a new document. So we're going to create some dummy equations on this document and then apply some captions to it. So in the new document, we are now going to go to the symbol group under the insert tab, which is here. And then we are going to insert captions to some equations. So we are going to use the area of a circle as our first example to insert a caption on. And then we're going to select our equation and then click the shortcut drop down arrow by equation and select justification, and then we're going to justify this to the left first of all. So we justify to the left so that it goes to the left of our document. So I'll zoom out so that you can see what I've just done. So before it was in the center, and now once I redo, it moves to the left. So let me zoom in more so that you can see. And then move the insertion point to the blank line above the equation. So let's say I want to add my caption to the top of our equation and not the bottom like we've done for our table. So again, we'll go to the reference tab and the caption group and then click insert caption. This time we are going to use a different label, which is equation. And then let's now play around with the numbering format a little. So usually when you are numbering your captions, usually you would follow the Arabic counting method, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. But if you wanted, you could change that numbering to, let's say, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and so on and so forth, especially if you're looking at figures within chapter 1. And then when you get to chapter 2, you can change that formatting numbering to 2.1, 2.2, and so on and so forth. So to change numbering, you'd simply use the numbering button and then click a predefined format that you can pick and choose from. So in this case, we are going to pick the letters. So we're going to use the small letters in this case, small letter A, and then okay, and the number changes to a small letter A. And then we are then going to name this equation to area of circle. Once we are happy, click OK, and the area of circle is highlighted. Using the formatting tools, you can also change the color if you'd want to make it stand out to red and so on and so forth. But you need to apply this for each and every caption that you insert. So I'll put it back to the default blue, which is that one. So let's say we now add our second equation. We go back to the insert tab, and the equation, we add the binomial theorem, and then we want our caption this time to be at the bottom. This is different from what's in the lecture slides. So you'd select your equation. We don't want to format it in any way. And then you'd go back to your reference tab, insert, and you notice that the numbering continues from B. So this time I want it below, and then I can name it to binomial theorem equation, and then click OK. And this is how you would apply your captions to equations. And remember, if it moves, you just justify it back and it should move back into place. So you can also edit and delete citations, or captions, as you did with the citations. For instance, we want to change equation A with a small letter A to B, a capital letter. You'd simply select that, go to the references tab, and then change the numbering from, let's say, that maybe to B to the capital letter, and the update is applied to both equations. And then you say okay. There are a bit more details within the lecture slides on what other editing options that you can perform, so I encourage all of you to go through and do the exercises as well. So now, moving on from inserting citations, we now know how to insert citations to specific sections of our research document. We've also learned how to label objects such as equations, tables, and figures. And we've also seen that you can also create your new labels. We are now going to look at modifying headers and the footer section of our document. So a header is a section on the top of the document, and the footer will always appear at the bottom. So let me minimize this and go to our previous document. So the top section of the document is what you refer to as the header section, and the footer is what is found at the bottom. This is where we can have things such as the page numbering appearing, endnotes, and footnotes as well, or any other specific notes that you would want to add in your document. So in order to place a header onto a document, we need to place the insertion point anywhere on the first document. So let's just say at the top of the line, and then go to the insert tab, and then within the header and footer group, you click header. But for now, let's start with page numbers. So let's say we add in page numbers. We want the page number to show at the bottom, or in this case, top, and plain number 3, right, which is that one. The moment you add a page number, you have these dotted lines that show you exactly where the header is and where the footer section is. So we have your header there at the top and your footer there at the bottom. And you have your page numbers that have been inserted as well. So make sure the insertion point is resting on the front page of the number field as it is here. So not at the back of number 1, but the front of number 1. And then you are going to key in your last name. So I'm going to say Chama right at the top, and then a space bar once, and my name is now going to be appended to each and every page like this. So it's now on page 2, it's also on page 3, and also on page 4, which is our last page. So moving back to the top, once we are done editing that, we can close the head and footer group by clicking the close button there. And then you would see that your footer section is slightly gray or faded out as compared to your text. So that's how you simply manipulate sections within your header and footer. You could have also changed the location of, so let's say in the header I write my first name instead, and then the footer I have my last name on the left. And this is how you would edit that information. So I have the first name at the top and my surname at the bottom, and it will change for each and every page. 3 will have Victoria and then Chama right at the bottom. So we are now slowly summarizing, working with citations and the reference tab. But before we do, let's quickly discuss creating a works cited page, which is basically your bibliography. So in order to include a works cited page, we would go to the end of our document, and then right at the end we can remove enter. So we remove the inline first line indent and say backspace. Nope. Or simply move your ruler there. That should remove the first line indent. And then we want to add our bibliography group. So with the insertion point at the end, at the beginning of the blank new page, we're going to go to the reference tab and cites and bibliography group, and then we're going to use our works cited or references or bibliography. So there's a difference in the way these things appear. So we're going to appear if you select each one of these. So we're going to select the works cited style, and this one is inserted in a new page, and the title is also inserted for you, and the header continues to the new page. So we're going to use works cited. So we have all the references or sources that we've used within our document showing up here at the bottom. So once you've included this, let's say we added a new source. So we go to the heading, first row. So I'll just open up my navigation bar. So we're going to row of first ladies. So let's say we are going to add a new citation. So we are not we're going to use add a new citation after the word gluten here. So, but in this case, let's say it's something I said. Let's change that to Chama and say insert new citation, and you already know how to do this. Add a new source. So this is a book by me. Add, and then okay. So the book I'm writing is ICT132. Inserting citations. The year is 2020. The city is Kabwe. The publisher is Mulungushi University. And the edition is, let's say first edition. And say okay. And the citation or new source is added as well. So we are now going to go back to our works cited page, which is here, and you notice that I have just added a new reference, but it isn't showing up here. So in order for you to update this citations, you need to click that button, and the new citation which was added is also included here at the bottom. We can also delete our citation, work citation page by simply clicking these three dots and then deleting it using the delete key if you wanted to delete it. So I'm just going to undo that so that you see. So I just simply clicked and then use the delete key. So this is how you would add a work citation page. So I want you to play around with these other styles to see how these ones differ from the work cited as well. So now moving on, we now move on to inserting footnotes and endnotes. So usually as you are writing your documents, there are some additional information that you would want to give the reader that you don't necessarily want to show within the body of your text, but rather you would want it to appear at the bottom, which is your footnote. A good example of this text is information that you find in the Bible. Usually you have your Bible verses, and then they usually have small letters or numbers next to the end of a sentence or a chapter. And then once you cross-reference what it is looking at, you have some additional text that is written at the bottom. So this is what we are now going to discuss, which is inserting footnotes and endnotes. So both footnotes and endnotes are simply types of citations in a document where additional information is inserted and also serve as references to a source. So a footnote is placed at the bottom of a page in a document on which the citation is located, whereas the endnotes only appear at the end of the document. So wherever you have a reference, so let's say, where did we insert that reference there? You would have its corresponding footnote here. Only where the reference is where you would find its corresponding footnote. Whereas endnotes won't have any additional information here, but rather at the end of the document. So in order to understand creating footnotes and endnotes, we are going to use this same document, and we are going to go to the heading Women in Politics. So Women in Politics is where we are, and then we position the insertion point at the end of the first paragraph. So the first paragraph is where? Say, which is here, I believe. Explained. And then click the insert footnote button in the footnotes group below, and this is found within the references tab. So we're going to click insert footnote, and the moment you click this button, a number will appear and the cursor will also move with this corresponding number matching this to allow us to add more information. So let's say you wanted to give more information about the author that wrote this without letting the person go down to the works cited page to read the entire description. So this is where you would add the information here. Then you'd say first ladies political role and public image. Then you'd key in more relevant information, Washington, and so on and so forth. Let's see, Smithson Institute, 1994. And this is how you would insert a footnote for that specific reference. So next we're going to place the insertion point by the superscript at the end of the second paragraph, and a screen tip appears to display the footnote text. So basically what they're saying is whenever you hover over this, the text that you've written at the bottom of the screen here is what will appear there. So at the bottom of the page, so now we move on to create our second footnote. So under the heading history of first ladies, which is there, we are now going to insert our second footnote before Anthony. So we look for the word Anthony, which is here, because we want to add a footnote for this reference, and then click footnote. The number 2 appears because we are just incrementing from the previous one, and then we are going to enter the following information about the author. Carl and his surname, America's first family, and so on and so forth. So whatever else is in the lecture slides, you should be able to add that. Then we move on to the next section, which is going to the heading row of first ladies, which is row first ladies there, right there. And then at the end of the third sentence, we're going to insert our footnote, and this time we should have 3. So go and find the end of the third sentence. So we have 1, 2. Where is the end of the first sentence? Third sentence. We have 1, 2, and 3 right there. We're going to insert our next footnote, which is Gutin Mayara G, the president's partner, and so on and so forth. And then we are going to save this. And basically this is how you would add footnotes to your document. So every time you add a new footnote, the number will change. And you can also change the formatting of how this information shows, from maybe changing it to numbers, to letters, and so on and so forth. So I'll ask all of you to go through the lecture slides to figure out how to change the footnote numbering from, let's say, numbers to letters, and also converting the footnotes to endnotes as well. So we also look at one of the final sections, which is creating a table of contents. You have already done this, but we shall go through this quickly. So in order to insert a new table of contents, we are working within the reference tab as well. And also, we need to add a new page where we want to create our new table of contents. So the lecture slides go in detail on how to easily separate and create a separate page of content such that the header and footers are not applied, as well as inserting a title page to our document, which you should all go through. But let's quickly insert our table of contents before we go on to the next section. So we are going to use the document we're working on. So we are going to position the insertion point at the beginning of the document, which is there. And then we're going to add a next page section break and then move the insertion point to the new blank page. So we have next section page break, which is there. Then we're going to move it here. And then we're going to press twice, enter twice, and then go to the reference tab and then insert our new table of contents. We can use the custom table of contents to specify how many levels we want to show. If we have, let's say, 2 heading styles that we've used throughout our document, we can decrease the number to 2. If we have more than 2, such as 5, we can increase that number to 5. And if you scroll down here, it will show you a preview of what the indentation will look like. And this is the web view hyperlinks and also which tab leader is showing. We can use none, meaning there won't be any tab leaders joining us from the title to the page, or we can use a dashed line or a single line or the default, which are the dots. So you're going to go through this exercise, follow within the lecture slides on how to insert a table of contents and also how to insert a hyperlink. So inserting a hyperlink is very easy. So rather than typing out the full web address, you could simply select a word that you would want to use to create that hyperlink for. So let's say I wanted to change this to my email address rather than typing out the entire full email itself. So I would simply select it, go to the insert tab and then choose link and then choose the email address option instead of existing for our web page or any of these other link options. Since we're linking to an email address, I can simply type my email address here at mu.edu.zm and the subject that I expect, so maybe ICT132 student query, and then click OK. So when you hover over this, it will show you a preview of the email and the subject. If you click Control and then click, it should also open Outlook or whichever mail service that you have installed on your browser to ask whether you want to create an account or simply use an existing account which you will email me with. So that's how you insert an email hyperlink, but you can also set just a normal website hyperlink, and the details of how to do that are within the lecture slides. You can also create bookmarks. So these are the same things as a normal physical bookmark, which you would use to make insertion points in the document to help you identify how far or which section of the document you've reached, and the steps to insert a bookmark are also within the lecture slides. So basically, that's how you go about formatting a research paper. First things first, you'd start with typing out the contents of your document, which is this, And then you'd move on to applying header sections and styling to your document like we applied here. Once you are happy with the layout, of course this requires further editing. For instance, we need to justify all our text so that it appears more appealing to read. So you do that as well. And then once you are happy with that formatting, you'd go through your entire document and then start adding all your citations and references by going to the References tab, clicking this button, and then adding citations and new sources as you see fit. Once you have done all the in-text citations, you may want to then start adding header and footer sections to your documents, and also page numbering, and also going through all the objects within your document to apply captions so that the tables and figures or equations or any other objects such as smart and the like have more description so that they help explain what it is that you're talking about. And once you've done all of that, you can generate your bibliography and also your table of contents at the back, and also format and create your title page. All of these steps that I have just gone through are within lecture 10 of the lecture notes on Moodle. If there are any questions, please send me an email or simply write a discussion forum on Moodle. That way, whenever you type a question, everyone within the course will be able to see it and will be also able to see my response. So this is where you type your queries here. So once you have your discussion here, I'll get a notification and I'll be able to respond. So if there are no questions, this is the lecture slide we've gone through, formatting a research paper. So we've done one method of inserting citations, and in the next one, I'll give a short introduction on using a different software, which is Zotero. So I have included Zotero for everyone within the course to download it. So it's there, but if you would want, you would always find an updated version on Zotero itself. This is a free software, you don't need to pay. So once you have downloaded and installed it, we shall also look at adding citations to references using that method. And the reason why you need to know both is that the reason is whenever you add citations in Word, only people with the Word document will only be able to see your citations. If someone who's using a Mac PC sends their assignment or their research document and is using a different software, those citations might not be readable within Word and vice versa. So that's how you format your research paper. Until the next lesson, have a good day.